Okay, so here we are on a white oak sand and refinish. I'm going to try to make this video as comprehensive as I possibly can. We have a lot of homeowners that come to our page, and we have a lot of professionals that come to our page, and I love the fact that we have that audience. The professionals come here and they tell us that they're learning from us all the time, and we also learn from the professionals that come to our page. So it's a great resource, not only for those who are watching our videos, but it's also a great resource for us to have the professionals that are chiming in on our videos in the comment section. So I'm going to kind of make this video, it's going to be more than one part. I'm going to make it, we're going to be on this job all week. So I'm going to make a video every day, and we'll do part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, so on and so forth. So, white oak sand and refinish, pretty typical here in New England. There's obviously a lot that's worn off in the fields of the rooms, and you may not be able to see it, at least in these 3 rooms, but I'll bring these all up to the living room, and you're gonna see how god-awful the previous sand job was. There's a lot of ripples, a lot of waves. There's kind of a lot going on. The sun's really not coming in where I kind of needed to really highlight everything, but it's there, trust me. So, all right, so here we go. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it all. So we don't treat every job the same. We don't have a go-to method for every job, because every job is in fact different, and they all need to be treated as such. We have like a method that we work actually backwards. We reverse engineer everything. So what we do is when we run one of the 2 big machines, this is a Hummel, this is my wife's machine, Chrissy, this is her machine. She runs a Hummel. I have an Omega 8, so we have the best of both worlds. Anybody who's in the professional field knows the Hummel is a very fine sander. It sands very fine. But we also know that it's the weakest, if not close to the weakest machine on the market. Enter in now the Omega 8 when we need a little bit more brutality. We bring in the Omega 8. And so what we do is we always stop our big machines at 60 grit, and then we pick up with the planetary, whether that be the Trio, or now we have the Hyper Grinder variable speed, which we've now had for 1 year. It was 1 year in May actually that we got it. So we run our big machines up to 60 grit, and then we bring in the planetaries, and we start the planetary with the same grit that the big machine left off with. So we'll start it with 60 grit, and then we'll go to 80 grit. And now we have the Hyper Orbit, which now we will bring in the Hyper Orbit at that point and run that with 80 grit, and that will be the final cut on all of our floors, including stain jobs. And that may sound a little bit low to some people who don't know anything about the Hyper Orbit. That may sound low in grit. Normally we would go up to 120 grit on stain jobs and go to 100 on clear coats. This job is going to be a clear coat, and normally we would go to 100 on this. With the Hyper Orbit, and we try to tell people this all the time, your mineral matters. But not only does the mineral matter, it's how the mineral is actually being moved that counts. And later on the next video, probably tomorrow, we're going to have the Hyper Orbit in here on this job, and we'll be able to go through and highlight how that machine moves the mineral, and that's what gets it down to an 80 grit. You can finish the floor, but in reality, by the time you're done, the scratch pattern on it is roughly between 150 and 180 grit. So it's an amazing machine. So on the big machines and on the flip, the edge where we run a flip, we always use Bona green, and we finish off with 60 grit. So I just spoke about reverse engineering. So what we normally do is if we know we're gonna stop the machine at 60 grit, we're gonna back up 1 grit in the sequence, and we're gonna make 1 or 2 passes on either one of the 2 big machines and see if that, in this case 50 grit, will do the job. If it doesn't, we'll drop down 1 more grit to 40 grit. I know there are some guys who have a go-to method for every single floor. They'll start with, say, 36, and they'll skip one grit through the progressions and go to 36 to 50, then 50 to 80. There are some guys out there who go from 36 to 80. That's a big no-no. You're skipping too many grits. But I'm going to speak in terms of the industry standard of skipping no more than one grit. So when we stop this machine at 60, we'll back down to a 50 grit as a starting point, and that'll tell us, can we stay with the 50 grit or do we need to drop down even further? In some cases, it's rare, but in some cases, we can make one pass with either one of the two big machines with 60 grit alone, and the big machine is done and it's out, and then steps in the hyper grinder. All right, and just for curiosity, there's my Omega 8. And again, I'm outside because the sound of the Hummel is going to overtake the microphones on the camera, on the GoPro. So you'll notice that when we do our jobs, we run the perimeter of each room that we do first with the hyper grinder. And there's two reasons why we do that. Number one is whoever's running their big machine, it gives them a bigger area to be able to feather in and out of. You have a lot more flexibility when you've got that kind of 18-inch swath around the whole perimeter of the room. And number two is there are some jobs you can walk into and you're going to drop the hyper grinder. The hyper grinder is going to be in the house anyways, whether it's a starting process or at the end to finalize, or be one of the machines to finalize the sanding. The hyper grinder is going to be in the building anyways. So we always make the primary cut around the edge of the room, the border of the room, to give that larger feathering place for one of the big machines to go into. It just makes the overall running of the big machines a lot easier. You're not that close to the walls to your left or your right when you're making your cuts. It gives you a little more wiggle room between yourself and the walls, and the machine and the walls to either side of you. And then when it comes down to being in front of you, again, you've got a lot more wiggle room to feather in and out of without leaving any drum marks. Just makes the overall job process for the Hummel or the Galaxy a little bit easier. Secondly is we could bring in the hyper grinder, make the first pass around the border of the room, and that's going to give us a very good indication on two things. Number one, can we actually continue with the hyper grinder and achieve the whole entire job with the hyper grinder? And we've done that before. You've got it already in the room making that perimeter cut. If it's doing great and it's moving along fast, why not just keep on going? And that alleviates having to bring in a big machine, set it up, use it, break it down, and bring it back out. You know, there's time involved in bringing the machine in, unloading it, setting it up, getting the electrical to it, and then breaking it down and bringing it back out. There is time involved with that. So if you get a floor that's willing to agree with the terms of the hyper grinder, and you can buzz through the whole entire job with the hyper grinder and do it just as efficiently and just as quick, why not do it? In this case, we opted not to do that, although I think that we could have based on what I saw. So we're running the border on this one. There is a lot of cleaning solution that's on this particular floor. We tried the hyper grinder with 40 grit, it clogged it up. We tried it with a 50 grit first, it clogged the paper, dropped down to a 40, clogged the paper, dropped down to a 36, and we're making the passes. So I'm going to take you in, I'm going to run the borders of the next room with 36, 40, and 50 grit on the hyper grinder. They're all Bona green. And one rule of thumb with any planetary is you don't skip any grits whatsoever. this here is the result of all the improper floor cleaners used on this floor over the years. So we're gonna throw some new 36 on it and finish the rest of the perimeter. But these got us through the entire first room that Chris is currently in, and it got me to where I currently am with the hypergrinder. So the beautiful thing about the hypergrinder is how close it actually gets to the wall, how much edging I'm gonna have to do when I'm all done with the hypergrinder in the big machine. And it's about 3/8 of an inch. So you literally just drop the flip in our case, and you pull the machine down the wall all the way around the room, and you're done. There are a couple of pad variations you can get for the hypergrinder. There's 2 pads that we know of that are a little bit thicker. They're about a 1/2 inch thick. These are thinner. The other 2 are different densities. One's like a medium cut, one's a soft cut. These are much thinner. There's not as much material on these. They consider these to be soft, which they are, but because there's so little pad, it almost like makes it like a hard soft cut. Then we have the Steelies from New Light with the hole in the middle. Then we have an interface pad on each side of the Steely, and then we throw on the Bona green. Speaking about abrasives, you have to know your abrasive. Choose wisely. So it's not only the abrasive content that counts. This is ceramic. It's also the coating on the abrasive, which makes the difference, and the backing. And Bona just hit the ball out of the park when they created this particular paper, the green version, for your belt machines, for your planetaries, for your edgers, because of the holy trinity of what we need, really. You need a good abrasive with a good coating and also a good thick backing. And that's why these last so long and they cut great. And then when you're ready for your final stretch, you want to drop to a softer mineral. We go to Bona Black, which is a silicone carbide paper. That way it doesn't leave a harsh scratch whatsoever. And it still has the capabilities to take out the previous cut, previous grit of Bona Green. Okay, so now I'm on to the 40 grit, and then I'll go to 50 grit, and I'll be off in the next room with the hypergrinder. Generally speaking, without me making a video and having to move the camera and change paper, it usually takes about a minute per wall, per grit. So about 15 minutes to hit the edge of any one room with all 3 grits. All right, I have to talk outside because Chrissy's inside running the Hummel, and it's going to kind of overtake the microphones on the GoPro. So we're going to walk in and we're going to see Chrissy cutting at an angle. She's running the machine at a slight angle of about 7 to 10 degrees. Either direction is fine, to the left, to the right, whatever. The Hummel is designed to run from left to right. I know there's some people out there in the professional field that sadly don't know what they're referring to, and they have a claim that their machine is set up to run from right to left, and that is just simply not the case. I won't get into that now. I'll make another video at a later date. But belt machines, as a general rule, are all designed to run from left to right, and she is running it at an angle. So we run all of our cuts with all our big machines at an angle. And why do we do that? It flattens the floor out better. Professionals want their floors flat. Level is the building, flat is the flooring. So what that means is, it means two different things. You want each board in conjunction with each other, the one in front of it, the one behind it, and the one to each side of it, to all be at the same plane. That's flat in one sense. The other sense is there's two components to wood that I'm going to use in this particular example. There's soft grain and then there's hard grain. The soft grain sands at a different rate than the hard grain does. So what happens with your belt sanders, or any sander for that fact, that's in a drum motion, it creates a process called dish out, scoop out, whatever you want to call it. It sands the soft grain quicker and deeper than the hard grain, so you get variations in your grain. Professionals want their floors to be what they consider tabletop flat, so that the soft grain and the hard grain are all at the same plane. They're all level, they're all at the same height. That's what you strive for. When you turn your machine at a little bit of an angle, that's where you reduce the possibilities of dish out. So I'm going to take you in, I'm going to show you Chrissy running her Hummel. It's got a 40 grit on it, and she's running it at an angle. Alright, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks on the Hummel, or any big machine for that fact. So, you ever run a Galaxy or anything along the lines of a Galaxy that's that powerful and pulls off that much stock? What you can experience with your lower grits, 24 grit, 36 grit, 40 grit, and even sometimes 50 grit, is that when you go forward, you're leaving a contrail of dust balls and clumps behind you that when you back up, you're hitting those with your wheels, and your machine is, obviously riding over them and like little speed bumps, and that's going to translate to your sand job. So the way to alleviate that is, and it makes perfect sense, is you always walk your machine forward a lot faster than you do backwards. And understanding the motion of the machine is, if the drum is going forward and you're walking with it, there's no resistance, really. There's no resistance. You're being dragged forward. You're controlling the machine going forward. Where all the magic actually happens is when you're pulling the machine against itself. So if you've got the drum spinning in a forward motion and you're pulling it backwards, that's where the best sanding comes into play. So anything forward is really kind of like preparation. You kind of just skin it over what's going on. So if you walk slow and you're holding your machine going forward and you're kind of holding it back, you're cutting, but you're also making just a ton of dust on the floor, again, where the machine has to ride onto, and that's going to translate into sanding, and you don't want that to happen. Plus, you want to remain dustless, or as least dust as humanly possible. So walk quick going forward, you're going to skim the floor, and you're going to prep it to really be sanded. Because again, the motion of the drum moving forward and you're pulling it backwards, that's the most resistance, that's the heaviest cut you can give it. And number two is, when you get to your end wall, I see a lot of people doing this. The drum comes up and they'll drop the drum before that back wheel carriages and turns around. So did you see how the machine just went to the side when a carriage goes to the side a little bit? That will also translate into your sand job while your drum is down. If the wheel hasn't carriaged, the machine's gonna go like that, and you're gonna have those type of marks in your floor. So, fast walking forward, slower walking backwards, and make sure that that back wheel carriages on the return before you drop the drum again. I must take a look at it in real world and see how that all works. I'll see if I can get the camera a little bit closer, but you'll see the fast forward, you may not see the carriage. Okay, for us, when it comes down to edging, we use the Festool vacuum, and we also use what's referred to as the lifelong bag. We can open this up, dump the bag right out, and you're back up and running. So we don't deal with the paper bags. The expense behind that just isn't worth it. Festool vacuum's a great vacuum. You can get pretty much any one of them, and their rate is pretty much all the same. So it really doesn't matter which Festool vacuum you choose. And the nice thing about the vacuum and the hose is this fits perfectly into the spout for the flip. Okay, the flip is all set up. It's got 60 grit Bona green on it. I am literally going to edge once. 60 grit Bona green. I'm going to do nothing more than pull this machine, and that's it. I'm just gonna pull it. There's no other reason to. I only have a 3/8 of an inch. I could actually edge sand this place with the Rotex. Do a little bit more work right there, and I'll grab a little more on the corners. And when it comes down to scraping, we do have the corner attachment for the flip. We've used it. It's unbelievable. It works great. But still, you have to change over that attachment, and you have to continue with the vacuum, the hose, the cords. Do you really want to fight all that? To each is their own. What we do, or what I do, because I'm the one that does the edging, is I'll scrape as I go. Come to a corner, get out of the corner, stop the flip, and just scrape the corner and go. That way I'm not running around scraping all the corners at the same time, which can be daunting depending on the finish. It can actually be exhausting. So I just do it one corner at a time as I'm going. But based off what the hypergrinder did, and this is 60 grit, And then keep in mind what's gonna come afterwards. After I'm done edging, Chris is gonna chase me with the hyper grinder with 60 grit and then 80 grit, which both of those will still equally get as close to the wall. But then the hyper orbit will come in with 80 grit, which is the next grit up from 60, and whatever edging marks that the hyper grinder cannot get, the hyper orbit will get. I'll give you a quickie on how we scrape. So the scraper never leaves the floor, stays in contact with the floor both forwards and backwards. And we start from the outside and work our way in. Pressure on the nose. Actually more guidance on the nose and pressure on the lip with this hand. Done. And it's nice and smooth. There's no lift to it and there's no drop, even with the floor. All right, let's talk about a couple of things hyper grinder related. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's two heads that come with this machine. This is what's called the all steel head, and they have a Velcro head. So this is a puck system. I'm not gonna take any one of the pucks off right now, unless it comes off really easy. And a lot of the times they don't. There you go. So this is a puck system, and the three little nubbies plug into the three little holes, and that's how that stays on. And it's a great system, and it's very solid, it's durable, it's bulletproof. On the Velcro head, what you have is you have the base, and then the way that the pads on that connect is by a threaded rod, and they thread into the plate. And it's a good head, it's a lower head. This head does sit higher. The Velcro head is a lower head, and it's great for doing under toe kicks and things like that. The issue with that head is you've got a machine that by the time you put the weights on and the head itself and the weight of the machine, you're way up there in weight. I'm not exactly sure what the weight is without looking it up again with everything combined, but 4 horsepower motor on the hyper grinder, and you've got 4 pads, and each pad is only held on by roughly a 1/4 inch threaded type rod. You're asking each individual 1/4 inch threaded type rod to withstand a lot of weight and a whole lot of torque. So generally what happens with those, unfortunately, they do tend to break, and you're replacing pads on a regular basis. So this unit here, we bought after the fact. This machine, when we got it, came with the Velcro head. Within a month, we ended up buying this because we'd already gone through a couple of pads, and you don't want your machine down on a job. But that is when it's going to go down. It's not going to break while you're not using it. So anyways, we opted for the all steel head. It's definitely more torqueier than the Velcro head. the Velcro head we now only use if we need to go under any toe kicks. This is our go-to head. It's bulletproof. Nothing's gonna break on it. It just is what it is. And if you notice in the videos, when I do the perimeter, I run this machine counterclockwise around the room, and there's a reason for that. And the reason being is that by the way that this spins, if you put it against the wall and run it counterclockwise, it tends to pull the machine in towards the wall. If you run it clockwise, going the other way, it kind of bounces it out from the wall a little bit. So you just get a better cut running it counterclockwise along the perimeter. And this machine does have a cut point, like a buffer. The strongest cut point is about the 4 o'clock position. When we run it up and down the floor, we'll run it in the 4 o'clock position in line with the grain. And I'll show you how we determine that. So for anybody who doesn't know what a clock position is, let me give it a quick explanation. You're standing behind the machine. This is 12 o'clock. This is 3 o'clock. Back here is 6, and this is 9, okay? So the strongest cut point on this is about the 4 o'clock position. So the way that we line it up is we always run the machine with the weight on it. It's always got one weight on it as a counterbalance. We've never put 2 weights on it. I correct myself, I think we put 2 weights on it once to do an aluminum oxide floor job with the diamond pucks on it. But, so the weight has a flat side on it, on both sides. On the right side of the machine is where we're gonna focus though, right? So all we do is this here is the 3 o'clock position, and that's about the 4. So all we do is make sure that that flat spot on that weight is lined up with the grain, and we go up and back, up and back, up and back, up and back, with that straight spot on the weight being in line with the grain, and that puts the machine in the 4 o'clock position, and that's how it should look. And this is how it should look from the front view if it's coming at you. And we've done plenty of jobs with just this machine without the use of a big machine. And again, you have to know a couple of things in order for that to all work and work efficiently and effectively. You have to know if you're working by yourself, you have to come to that determination. If you're working with 2 people, it depends on how efficient and effective the 2 of you work together. With us, it's just my wife and I, and we have our system down. So we came in, obviously, this morning. First thing we did was drop the hyper grinder around the perimeter. And then when I get out of a room with the hyper grinder, Chrissy runs her Hummel. So she's literally chasing me all around the house. And now the tides have turned. I'm completely done with the perimeters of all these rooms. And she's done with 3 out of 4 of the rooms with the Hummel. And now she's going to come in and polish this room off in the field. And again, we run the field and it gives her that nice buffer zone in between the walls to the left of her and to the right of her. It just makes her job a lot easier. And then when it comes to the end grain, she's got that larger space to now feather in and out of. It just makes it a lot better of a system. And it doesn't happen on every job. The floor will tell you what it needs, and the job conditions and the job site will tell you what it needs. But in most cases, that's how we handle it. And now that I'm done with the hyper grinder doing all the perimeters, she's done with 3 out of the 4 rooms using the Hummel. Now I'm going to come into where we first started, and I'm going to edge, which is going to take me no time. 60 grit, and I'm going to get out of here. By the time I'm done with the edger in here, she's going to be done with the Hummel, which now places her back in this first room that we started to now run the hyper grinder with 60 grit, and then she's going to run 80 grit. So at that point now, she's chasing me around the house. And then by the time she does get to the living room with the hyper grinder, I'll obviously be done edging, and the hyper orbit will then be in the building, and I'll be chasing her now with the hyper orbit. And that's how we work it out to work efficiently and effectively on every job, is we make sure that each one of us is always doing something and we're not standing around doing nothing. This room needs to be edged and hit with the hyper grinder with 60 and 80 grit. Same with the living room. This room here is all edged, hit with the hyper grinder already with 60 and 80. And now this is going to take on the hyper orbit with 80 grit tomorrow. This room here has been hit with the hyper grinder. It's obviously all edged. Hyper grinder 60 grit. So tomorrow morning this will have to be hit really quick with the hyper grinder with the 80 grit, and this will be ready for the hyper orbit. And I'll bring you out into the living room, which is the same condition as the first bedroom, and that needs to be hit with the hyper grinder with 60 and 80, and also edged in the corner scrape. All right, Hummel's on its back, papers are relieved, and the belts are relieved a little bit for overnight. All the bags are taken out of the vacuums. The hyper grinder is on its back, not resting on its pads. Same with the flip, upside down, not resting on its pads. We never want any of our machines resting on their pads or drums during storage, transportation, overnight, breaks, things like that. And you vacuum up the entire building when you're done for the day, and you try to make the place pretty much baby safe, contain things as much as you can in certain areas, depending on the household, what's going on in the house, kids involved, animals, so on and so forth. Clean up for your client when you leave. Close all the windows. Make sure all the lights are off, any fans. Anything you turned on rather, you turn off. And then we're done for the day.